Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about the question, is medical coding stressful? If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. And I want to talk about this question because a lot of people are asking me, is medical coding more stressful than I'm a nurse and I want to switch over to medical coding? Is this going to be more stressful? I have no experience in the medical field. Is this going to be stressful for me? Here's the thing. I'm going to talk about some of the more stressful parts. I will say this. Everybody's stress level tolerance is different, okay? And it depends on what is happening around you, number one. And it depends on how much of yourself you're applying into this position. Number three, it depends what your motives are. And I will get into what your motives are in just a bit. But here's the thing. It's a lot. I'm not going to lie to you guys. And I'm not making this video to discourage anybody. I'm not making this video to make you change your mind. I'm letting you guys know what you're in for. We have to know what doctors know while never having gone to medical school. That is like one of the number one things that I always say, because it's true. We have to know about the body. We have to know about the disease process. We have to know medical terminology. And we have to be able to communicate very well, verbally and written. Because we have to communicate with providers that have had education for years. And if you don't have that really good communication, if your communication skills are not where they should be, a provider is going to lose patience with you very quickly. All right. So here are some of the things that are on the more stressful side of medical coding. The first one being that you have to pay attention to detail. If you are not a details person, this is going to be an obstacle for you, because when it comes to selecting the most specific code, which is what we are bound to do as medical coders, we have to select the most specific code. If you cannot get the most specific code because you weren't paying attention to detail, because every document is going to be different. And because of this, you have to look at the whole thing. It's not just going to be, well, this doctor documents this way, so this doctor must do the same. No, they're all different, and they're going to do things their way and the way that they want to. So this is when your communication is going to come into play. So you have to be very detailed, and you have to be able to catch those things. If there's missing documentation, if there's something that needs to be clarified, you're going to have to be strong enough to communicate with the provider and say, I need some clarification here. Okay, you can't be a meek person either. You cannot start out by saying, I'm sorry, sir, can you help? No. I'm telling you this for your own good. When you start off with an apology, this means you're apologizing for something. What are you sorry for if you're helping them to better their documentation? Because the better their documentation, it's so many other people are going to benefit. The patient is going to benefit. The provider is going to benefit, because they're going to know that everything that they're doing is being captured appropriately and they're getting paid appropriately. The facility is going to benefit because they're going to get all the money and revenue that is coming to that hospital or facility. And you as a medical coder are going to be even more sharper for every single time that you do that. So that is something that, happens, and just want to let you guys know that. Another very stressful thing is the audits. When your supervisor or your lead coder auditor will come to you and they will say, you're getting audited. Audits happen every single month. This is not something to be afraid of. This is just something that happens on a normal basis. This is not unusual for us, all right? It's going to happen every month, and in some places you get lucky and it's every quarter. It just depends. And you have to be able to meet these benchmarks, all of these things that you need to meet as far as like accuracy and productivity. Your accuracy and productivity have to marry up. If you are really accurate, but your productivity is slow, then you got to work on that productivity. If your productivity is high, but your accuracy is low, you have to slow down, because there is no reason for you to have such high productivity if your accuracy is lacking. You're going to have to go back and correct all of those mistakes that you made. So it's better to do it correctly the first time around. All right. It will get easier with time as far as like the audits go and how things go. The best way to combat that feeling of, oh my gosh, that dread feeling of the audits is to know where to find your resources, pay attention when you are coding so that when you have to sit there and argue back for yourself, you can legitimately argue back for yourself. Bring your resources. You cannot just say that I believe this is right because I say so. It doesn't work that way. You have to be able to cite, this is the guideline, this is the coding clinic that I used, this was the reference that I used, and then the references have to be from legitimate resources. They cannot be from just because I say so.com. It has to be from like the Merck manual or a medical dictionary or something like that. It has to be concrete. It has to be from the coding clinic or the coding companion, or the Coder's Desk reference for procedures. It's got to be from a legitimate resource. So knowing where to find your resources can help you sort of bring that stress level down if that is what you're thinking. In the beginning, a lot of times for brand new medical coders, they're going to have what's called a ramp up period. Every time I say ramp up, people, I get a question, what do you mean by ramp up? Ramping up, what does that mean? Like you are going to like a slow increase, right? You're going to ramp up to what you need to be with productivity wise and accuracy wise. Typically, I'm not saying for all places, but typically it is a 90-day time frame where they give you time to get trained and to get up to speed on the electronic health record, which takes some time to learn depending on what system you are using, because not every facility uses the same. And so some are more complex than others. It just depends on what system you're using. But typically you get a 90-day ramp up period. If you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is being present in your work and not engaging with other coworkers, talking constantly, or being on your phone. I see that happen with a lot of new coders, is that they get comfortable and then you see them, they start to pull out their phone and start to play on their phone or check their messages, or my kid. They'll use their children as an excuse of why they're on their phone constantly. Guys, you're working. You have been hired to do work. So you have to put that aside. When you're working, you're working. Unless your child truly needs you, then you should be with your child. But if you're just being on your phone just to be on your phone, check Facebook and Instagram and all this other stuff, you need to stop and you need to be with your work. Because people have complained before, literally with a straight face, and say, I don't have time to meet my productivity. Well, why? And you see them, they're on their phone. So a lot of times when people say it's stressful, it's because they're bringing the stress on themselves. And you want to set yourself up for success. And the best way to do that is to unplug, only be on your phone on your break times. Okay, if you get breaks, then you can be on your phone then. But when you are with that record, you need to be paying attention. Okay, because that provider deserves all of your attention. That patient, more than anybody else, deserves for you to be paying 100% attention to what you're doing. And even if you're brand new and you don't have a lot of experience, it doesn't matter. You still need to be engaged with what you're doing. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to bring down the stress level, but that is one of the hugest things that I see that people do. It's just like, how can you truly complain that you don't have time if you're on your cell phone? Okay, so really try to do that. If you're not understanding something, that could be another stressful point. And if you feel like maybe your coworkers don't want to answer your questions, in any place, you're going to have those people who want to help, and then you're going to have those people who don't want to help because they didn't have anybody to train them. So why should they train you? But here's the thing. It's about teamwork. And I always say this all the time. I mean, I am one of those ones who loves to help. I like to train. I don't mind training. I have trained many new people when they start out as brand new medical coders. And I love it. That's one of the joys that I have because I love to teach. The thing is, I know who's going to be successful right off the bat. And you know how I know who's going to be successful is if I see the person taking notes. If I see a person taking notes, I know that they are going to get it. They are going to really grasp and understand what's happening because they're taking the time to write down all of these notes. It is hard to remember everything. And if people say, oh yeah, I'll remember it, there's so much information that's going to be coming at you at one time. It's going to be very imperative that you take notes, because this way you have something to go back to if you forget, or if you need to remember what happened, or how to do this or whatever. If you're not taking notes and you're running back and forth to your coworkers, that's when you may find that your coworkers are not going to be as willing to help you. And so that is something that can be very stressful, because you may feel lost at sea if you have nobody around you to help. But it's going to take you doing your part, which is knowing where to find your resources so that your coworkers can see that you have been trying to find out whatever it is that you're getting lost on. There's so much to this field, and those are some of the biggest stress points, is, learning where to find all those resources to find your answers. And also, another stress point is communicating with these providers. If you have, anxious nature, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't talk to this provider, I can't talk to that provider, I feel like I can't, no, you have to stop, and you have to realize that what we do as medical coders, part of it is communicating with our providers. Yes, there are some facilities that do employ an in-house CDI, Clinical Documentation Improvement Practitioner. Not all places do. Not all places have an educator on hand for the providers. So it's on the coder to be able to communicate with their provider. And if you are, if that is something that gives you anxiety, like you start to stress out about it, guys, don't stress out about it. These providers are people just like you. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret, okay? They have feelings too, and they have anxiety too. They get nervous too, and they don't like to be told that they're wrong, okay? So this is where you building yourself up and getting those really good communication skills is going to come into play. Because if you learn how to communicate with different types of personalities, especially those that are highly intelligent, it's going to be a lot easier for you. It's going to be a lot better for the provider. Because so many times I hear from providers, like if I get a brand new provider, I'm right there. Hi, how you doing? I'm Blue. I'm your coder. And, they say, wow, I've never had a coder come up to me just to introduce themselves. I said, well, you haven't met a coder quite like me before. And the reason that I do that is because I want to establish those relationships right off the bat. If you show your provider that you care, they are more likely to say, okay, I will work with this person. And it's not about bringing them down, or I'm going to teach them a lesson because they got snippy with me. Here's the thing. Yes, that does get stressful when you have a provider who insists on doing things their way, and how dare you try to tell them what to do. It's not that you're trying to tell them what to do, it's that you're trying to help them. You guys are supposed to be partners. So that is what I always say all the time. You have to stress that you guys are partners, and you have to be respectful to your partner at all times. It does not matter what they're doing. But you may run into situations where they are just impossible, and they will yell and they will scream and they will do all these things, right? They'll just start talking and they'll talk over you. And in those instances, it is okay to walk away. This is where learning to have really good communication skills comes into play, because you do not have to be disrespected, okay? And that is the number one thing that you should always remember. You have to remember being respectful to them is supposed to bring respect back to you. And as long as you are working with them, there should be no cause for the provider to get really upset. And if they get really upset like that, that means that there's something else going on. It is not about you. And it is okay to take a timeout, okay? And being strong enough to say, I need to take a timeout is okay. Because it is never okay to engage with a provider in the same way if they're upset, okay? That is one of the biggest stress points that I will say for myself. The coding I have down. I'm like, I got that. it's always those curveballs with communication that it's just like, okay. And for the most part, I'm pretty good with it, where I can handle it. I can handle a little, you know, a little debate back and forth. But whenever it has gotten to that point, and it has gotten to that point very rarely in my career, thank goodness, you know, I am very grateful for that. I work with a great group of providers as it is, but on the occasion when I do get that, that's when it's been stressful. But I can handle it because I have learned that it is not about me. And thankfully, I've had my Arbinger Institute training. The Arbinger Institute, if you guys don't know, they put out wonderful books about how to deal in the professional environment. And it has helped me so much. It has helped me tenfold. And knowing that it's okay to walk away instead of taking all that has really helped to better my relationships with my providers. Because it's like, okay, so we are at another level here. We are at a higher level because we have a higher caliber of a coder here with us. So that is the thing. It is fun, believe it or not. Aside from all of that, aside from the audits, aside from the potential of a provider getting upset with you, and if you've been a coder before and you know, you know that there are ones that are just impossible. But sometimes it takes that you have to change your approach. Okay, so that is always something to think about. But getting really good with your communication skills is going to help you. So these are some of the things that are stressful, but I've also talked about some of the ways to remedy these things, okay? And the other thing that I will say, of course, as I close this out, is what is your motivation for getting into medical coding? If your motivation is purely for the money, you are going to run into times when you're going to feel like this is not worth it. Personally, I think that you should never get into this kind of field for the money because it takes a lot. It's a lot of attention to detail. It's a lot of studying. And for you to put as much time and energy into it, you have to love what you do. And we only get one rodeo, okay? One rodeo in life. That's it. And however we choose to spend it and however we choose to spend our time in our careers, because think about it, you're going to be working at this job for 40 hours a week for who knows how many years until you retire, right? And you better enjoy what you're doing because it would be sad to think that you've worked in a position that you really didn't enjoy and you spent all this time doing it and you had to spend time doing classes to continue your continuing education units to be able to apply those. So that's something that you guys need to think about. I hear people all the time, they want to talk about money, and that is a huge thing for them. And I mean, I understand you want to get paid well, you want to get paid good for your time. Coders make good money, but that's my opinion. And people have looked at the salary and said, oh no, that's not enough. You don't have to have a college degree in order to make a very decent living in this field. And so that is something that is really unique and really awesome about medical coding is that you don't have to. And a lot of times there's a lot of trades out there where you don't have to have degrees in order to make really good money. And sometimes you can make more than a degree holder, depending on what field you're getting into. And in medical coding, depending on what your credential is and what you're doing. So that is something to think about. But to me, if you, you may not have asked for my advice, but I'm just letting you guys know that if your motivation to get into medical coding is 100% about the money and not about the fact that you're going to be reading and studying for however long you choose to do this, I would strongly recommend that you reconsider because this is a field that deserves to have attention to detail folks who like to read, folks who like to communicate. Because you can't be in this field and not communicate. You have to be able to communicate. And yes, I know there's a lot of people that are very shy. I was very shy in the beginning. And it's taken, it took me a few years to come out of my shell. But when I had my aha moment, when I decided, when I finally realized that I love what I do. And I was like, I had that click. I was like, now I get it. Now, it's like, but you guys see me, I'm very engaging, of course, in my videos, right? But I am a shy person. You meet me in real life, I am shy until I get to know you. And then it's just like, oh, But that is something that you just have to work with. And don't let your own personality traits limit the things that you can do. That's the thing that it drives me crazy when I hear that. When I talk to somebody and they're so smart and they've got all this knowledge about coding down, and they run into a brick wall because they say, I can't. Why? Because either they're shy, they don't believe in themselves, they don't have that self-confidence. I'm like, oh my gosh, if we can just marry your talents and you together, there is no limit to what you can do. So that is my advice. If you are out there and your motivation is either, that you just want to do it for the money, don't do it for the money. Do it because you love doing it. Do it because you love to read. Do it because you love the thought of helping a patient while never having to touch that patient. And that is another thing that you can think about. Okay, so what we do helps a lot of patients if we're coding correctly. Because if you were coding incorrectly, you could make that patient pay either too much or too little for the services that were provided to them. So that is something else to think about. And all of these things come into play when you're a medical coder. But it, to me, is absolutely worth it. And it's a great career. And I love what I do. And so that's why I share all of my knowledge with you guys, because there's not always this information that's being told to people, So, it just depends on where you're going. But thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. And if you want any more of this straight talk, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. And if you haven't already, hit that like button while you're at it. And I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. So if you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. I will see y'all next time. Bye.